All right, track wrestling here in Colorado Springs Olympic Training Center, World Team Training Camp with Yianni Diakomihalis. Big match coming up. Learned here just this week it'd be September 2nd against Zain Retherford. What has that done for training? How have you got yourself ready for that match, given the uncertainty?
So, again, we had that hearing the 15th, and if it was up to me, the match would have been sooner. So I was just, I don't cut a lot of weight, so I was just keeping my weight, within shooting range so I could make weight, at a 2 days notice and, even a 1 day notice, and just, making sure I feel good, keeping myself in shape, doing some hard workouts, but at the same time not killing my legs so that, in case there's a match coming up, you don't, like the uncertainty means that you have to be constantly prepared for competition, which is fine. I try to train at the weight that I'm gonna, weigh when I'm cutting weight for my match. I'm gonna train the same way I would, leading up to a tournament, just cut back on the volume. And, I think it just taught me to, roll with the punches and, can't stress over every little thing, and you can't live day by day stressing over, when you want the match to be or if you're gonna find out, when you're gonna find out. I've learned to be flexible, and I've learned to, just let things come and, take the news as I get it.
Has it been helpful to have other competitions overseas as something to kind of keep your mind on a different target?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would have hated it if I had wrestled Final X and not competed again until this, or if I lost arbitration until after the World Championships. I like competing. It's what I've done my whole life, and, I get that, sometimes you need a break from the college season. You're making weight every weekend, multiple times a week, but for me, if I have one competition a month, like, that's golden. I had Final X in June, I had Yasar Dogu in Turk in July, I had the Poland tournament in August, and now I've got this match in September. It's going to roll into the World Championships. So the competing for me keeps me on a good schedule, and I think it's a good way to test, my progress, see what's working for me, what's not. And for me, tournaments are really big on gathering intel about, what I have to do to get better.
What have been the biggest takeaways from those tournaments overseas?
Wrestling Europeans, wrestling Asians, the non-American countries, it's a lot different. Their approach to wrestling is different. They don't pride themselves as much on grit as they do on, athleticism or skill or whatever. Not that we're not skilled in athletic, but that grit, like, you can tell when you wrestle an American, they're gritty and they're scrappy and they, stick their face and stuff. And it's not that they don't, but it's different. And if I ever want to succeed internationally, I have to get those feels, and I have to learn how they wrestle. I have to learn to wrestle like that, and I've got to continuously find out what I'm going to do to improve and to elevate my game so that I can do everything perfectly.
The arbitration process, I understand, is pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
Imagine it's pretty enlightening too. What are some of the things that you learned about it that you didn't know going in?
It just I learned that dates are very not rigid. We had it set for the 17th, and then it was the 29th, and then it was the 2nd, and then it was the 8th, and then they were going to try and dismiss it. It didn't get dismissed. Then we had the hearing on this date, and then the guy said, I should know in a day or two, and then he's like, actually, I'll let you know in a week. And we're like, so I mean, it's an interesting process where, it's very thought out. You have to be very careful with the way you speak. Like, they get you with the word choice. And it was cool. It was an experience. I got to experience a courtroom, and obviously it's not the most intense courtroom you can find yourself in, but it was cool. I got cross-examined, and I got Zain's lawyer and USA Wrestling's lawyer, like, pointing fingers, asking me questions, and the whole deal. And it was cool to sit, and it was also interesting to hear everyone's perspective and hear how the referee saw it, and how Zain's coach saw it, and how, the head of UWW refereeing, they called him on, asked him how he saw it, how I saw it, how my coach saw it, how, there were some witnesses, and it was interesting to hear everyone's perspective, and, it's kind of, I try to play arbitrator myself and see, like, if this was me, how would I vote? And, fortunately it played out in my favor.
Walking out of there on the 15th, what did you think your chances were? What did you think the ruling was going to be?
So we talked to our guy, and I was just like, hey, I'm not going to bother you all night, but what do you think? And he was like, I think you had a good shot. I think they're going to re-wrestle match 2, and, but no promises. So I was just, I didn't want to get my hopes up too much, so I was prepared to wrestle, but I'm like, maybe I won't win. You know what I mean? So getting ready for the match, constantly keep my weight in order, keep my training in order, keeping my lifestyle so that at any moment I could show up and wrestle. And but secretly in the back of my head, I'm like, hey, be ready in case you lose. Like, don't let this drive you nuts. You know what I mean? So just keeping my regular routine and keep myself healthy. And then when I got the news, it didn't really hit me right away. I was like, oh, cool. I remember my dad called me. He was the first one who called me. He's like, hey, we won. And I was like, really? That's pretty cool. Like, that was all I said. And he was like, what? And, maybe 30 minutes went by, and I started getting asked, what date do I want, and logistics, like what locations and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I still got a chance to make the team. I still got to wrestle again. So it was exciting, and it was definitely a unique process. It's not something I would want to do regularly.
Yeah.
But it was a cool experience to have, in my life.
When your dad told you won, did you think you won match 2, or did you just think, hey, we're re-wrestling it?
He said you're gonna re-wrestle match 2, but I could tell that was what was gonna happen, because honestly I thought that's what I thought they were gonna do, because a lot of, like, when we had the actual hearing, a lot of even their witnesses sometimes, like, they brought on a witness who said, he was the head referee of UWW, and he said that pretty much, like, you shouldn't have been able to throw the brick, and they scored it, not the way he would have scored it. So he was, like, almost defending me a little bit. And just, I don't know, the way it was seeming, I could tell that, it was leaning in my favor. But in the UWW rulebook, there's this article, it's called Article 54. And I don't know it verbatim. I got asked if I know it verbatim, I don't. But pretty much what it says is that once a match is ended, like, wrestler's hand is raised, you can't change the winner. So that made it pretty much that I couldn't be declared the winner of match 2. Our argument was that they broke the rules in the first place, so you're allowed to change the winner because they got to that by a broken rule. But what the arbitrator decided was that rules were broken, but we're not going to break any more of them, so we're just going to throw away that match. And Zain had won the first match clean, fair and square, like, no issues, and then we wrestled match 2.
How much do you enjoy the legalities of this, the back and forth?
I wish I didn't have to be a part of it, but I do, because it's me. I'm the actual person in the case, but I appreciate, Coach Cole did a great job of just taking care of it. I didn't get bunked down with all these lawyers calling me every day, and this person asking this, and this guy's lawyer asking me this, and this arbitrator asking. Coach Cole took care of a lot of it for me, and I really appreciate him for doing that. And you gotta do what you gotta do, but I think relatively they did a good job keeping me uninvolved, just letting me focus on my training and focus on getting ready for the match that may or may not happen. And every once in a while I had to become a part of it, and it definitely wasn't something I'd like, but like I said, it was a cool experience, and it's definitely something that I don't think I'd ever be a part of again, some kind of arbitration for wrestling, but it was interesting.
Do you know the rule book better now than you did June 1st?
Yeah, I had to read that rule book so many times. I know the articles that were, like, in question pretty much. I'm definitely way more familiar with it than I used to. I didn't have to, but I just did, because it was like, I might as well know it in case they ask me. I looked up, I read up on the referee's responsibilities. I read on the challenge, on the protest. Like, Article 54 is that end of the match one. I know the wrestling rules, but it's just the procedural things. I just read on them because it's summer. Like, you just go to practice twice a day. Anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day you work out, and then you just kind of sit around, and watching TV gets boring after an hour. So I just would keep myself occupied with that. So,
do you think this is going to bring some kind of change to UWW rulebook, perhaps?
Maybe, but I really don't. What's interesting? So, Antonio Silvestri is the head referee of United World Wrestling, and they brought him on. And he said, when you make a decision, please let us know how you think we can change our rules, which I thought was really interesting, that he would be willing to, because usually people aren't willing to admit things like that. He was totally fine admitting, hey, listen, these rules aren't perfect, and we're trying to keep improving them, which I can appreciate, But I don't think so. Maybe they adjust the wording on this 5-second rule to make it not so subjective, where it's 5, but really you can do it 10. I could see them changing it to a hardline rule. Maybe it's all right, we're gonna change it from 5 to 8, but if you go over 8, if it's 9 seconds, we're not taking it. Whereas now they'll take it at 6. You know what I mean? So maybe something like that. But again, I don't know. I mean, I don't write the rule book, and there's a lot of things that can go on. And in the end, they ruled that the process was wrong and not the rules were wrong. That's why I got the re-wrestle. So I don't know. I mean, they could, they might not, they might. Depends on how they feel about it.
How much would that have changed the way you wrestled the last 45 seconds?
I mean, it would have made a huge difference, because my goal. So once I was winning 8-6 and we had that whole flurry going on, and secretly I was like, all right, you're winning, like, let's just get this match over with and get on to the next one, right? And it's not like I was holding on, for dear life, but it's like, keep the clock running and don't put yourself in danger. That was the 2 priorities. Keep the clock running, don't put yourself in danger. Whereas the flip side, when you're losing, you're like, I want clock efficiency, where I'm threatening you a lot in a short amount of time. I want clock efficiency, and I'm trying to create those like dangerous positions, because who cares if I get scored out? I'm already losing. You know what I mean? So it's opposite, and you would think it'd be opposite. One's winning and one's losing. So I think it would have changed a lot had I known. But I mean, you don't know unless you're put in that situation. But I would have 100% thought my strategy would change.
Sure. This will be match number 5 against Zain, potentially match number 6. What have been the biggest takeaways for you from wrestling him this many times in such a short amount of time?
The Penn State staff, or Zain, or whoever's doing it, they do a really good job. Keep it working on finishing on me. Keeping me off my leg attacks, keeping Zain in his control ties. So my dad calls it wrestling capitalism, where I get better, he gets better. I get better, he gets better. So, without even realizing, I think my game's elevated because, I'm trying to learn from every match I wrestle, and every time he does something different, it's my turn to change and do something different. And then even the matches I win, like after Turkey, still sit down, you look at it and figure out, what you can do different. And this isn't just with Zain, this is with anybody I wrestle. You look at it, think about what you can do different, what you can change. And I think the biggest thing, I don't know that there's one big takeaway, but because of just the natural development of our series against each other, it's forced me to continuously improve my game.
So you win 2 matches, you're going to have 3 weeks to get ready for the World Championships to compete over in Kazakhstan. Are you solely 100% just looking at Zain right now, or do you have an eye on the rest of the 65 kilo field? Because it might be the deepest weight class in men's freestyle.
Yeah, there's a lot of world champions, Olympic champion in there, and the best way I can explain it is I've wrestled Zain so many times, you can only make so many adjustments before you're like, all right, let's see what he does now. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I've been watching those guys, the Europeans and the foreigners, wrestle since I was 15 years old. So, I mean, it's been a long process of like Haji Aliyev is the European Games champ at my weight. I've probably been watching him wrestle since I remember watching him win his first world title in Vegas in 2015. So I was a junior, maybe in high school, maybe sophomore. No, I was a junior in high school. And I just started my junior year, and I watched him win his first world title, and I was like, I might have to beat that guy someday. And you just sit and think about it, And Kinchigashvili, Bajrang, who I train with all the time, So it's not that I'm preparing for one versus the other. It's, to me, this is the field. The field consists of Kinchigashvili, Aliyev, Tobier, Bajrang, Odaguro, Navruzov, Zain, and then more guys after that, So it's not one versus the other, it's just, focusing on the areas that I need to improve on. And, as you get closer, you start worrying about, specific guys.
Who's the first guy that you said, I might have to beat this guy one day to win a world title or an Olympic title?
Probably Haji Aliyev. I used to love him when I was a kid. I thought he was so good. And he's got that really nice collar tie single and snap re-attack, and his trapped arm gut on top used to be really good. And I don't know that it was specifically like him, but I remember thinking it was really good, and then one day I kind of was like, if I ever want to be a world champ, I have to be that good also. So it was It was. I remember watching, the World Championships in Vegas. It was the year Kyle Snyder beat Gadisov, and it was the coolest match. I remember between Snyder, Gadisov, and Jordan Burroughs wrestling Gaduev. Those were the two coolest matches I'd ever seen in person. They were awesome. Just like Americans coming back from behind, getting the job done. And, I'm looking up to all these guys, and I'm watching it live right in front of me. Like, man, these guys are so good. And then, I don't know, when it clicked, but one of those matches, it clicked where I'm like, if I ever want to win, I should also be this good. And, it was cool. Funny story about that. So Togrul Isgarov, you know who that is? He's from Azerbaijan. He took silver at the World Championships when he was 18, and then he beat Bessie Kudakov in Olympic Games when he was 19. And I remember my dad showed me his Olympic final in 2012. I had to have been 13 years old, and he's like, hey, this guy won the Olympics when he was 19 years old. So you should think about being that good when you're 19. Hold yourself to that standard. And I guess that was technically the first time.
So it wasn't watching Kyle win it at 19 that really opened your eyes, because you were already thinking that because of Asgarov.
That was something my dad had put in my brain when I was 10 years old. And I think it was important for me because as much as you need the short-term goals that are right in front of you, you need that long-term vision of, where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, you know what I mean? So I think the combination of short-term and long-term is important.
No matter how this turns out, you're going to take an Olympic red shirt. That's what Coach Cole said down in Florida here a few weeks ago. What went into that decision?
I didn't say it on a public forum, but I really wanted to. And I think it's, it works out for the team where, we're going to have a good year when I come back. And a big thing is that I genuinely believe I have a chance to, compete at a high level like that. And my coaches have my best interest in mind. So their thought process was that, hey, maybe you medal in this year's Worlds, maybe you win it. Maybe you medal in the Olympics, maybe you win it. Maybe you suck and don't even qualify for the trials, but you have a chance, so why not give you that chance and, try and put you in the best position to make a world team, make an Olympic team. And, I really appreciate them doing that for me because, maybe, like I'm out of the lineup for a year and, that might hurt the team, but they did that for me, which I really appreciate.
2021, 2022, Cornell's going to have pretty
good lineup.
Pretty loaded lineup.
Yeah.
You guys talked about that much? What those teams might look like?
We never say, oh, this guy here and this guy here, but I think the guys around the room understand that, the next 3 to 5 years we'll have a really good team. And, it's exciting and it's cool. And it's good because, everyone feels like they're a part of it now. When it's not just one guy winning or, it's not Kyle being the four-timer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I mean, it's like this is the team. This is the whole group coming together and doing this. And I think that's cool because everyone's involved and everyone's motivated now because everyone feels like them doing their part makes a difference. You know what I mean? And I think that's something really special when you have, 30 or 40 guys in the room and they all feel that they can make a difference and, do something that contributes to the greater good, which is good.
Got a chance to be on the team with Kyle. What do you remember about your first meeting with him? First time you met Kyle Dake?
I mean, he probably doesn't remember, but this is a funny story. I was maybe 11 years old, 12 years old, and I was just in the Friedman Center because, I had to have been a little older. Maybe I was in 8th grade, and I'm just watching them, cut weight before their first duel of the year, whoever it was against. I don't even remember. And Kyle just came to me and was like, hey, stud, and, walked away, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, Kyle Dake thinks I'm good at wrestling? What? And, he's someone who I always looked up to when I was a kid, and he always did well, and he was always cool because everyone always thought he was going to lose, and then he didn't. You know what I mean? People make the joke he's the worst wrestler on paper, best wrestler on the mat, and it was something it was really cool to see. Just people always betting against him, and then him always winning anyway. And he's a New York guy, he's a Cornell guy, grew up right by him, and he's someone who I've always looked up to since I was a little kid.
What's the greatest lesson you've learned from him?
He is very willing to explore different options. He does his functional patterns. His style's completely changed, from year to year to year. He does a good job of adapting, and that was something that's a big part of my game, being adaptable like that. But, I don't know that I learned it from him, but he confirmed it for me that those guys who are great, they're willing to throw things away and give up on something that maybe they thought worked but just didn't. And at the same time, they're willing to add things that maybe they're not comfortable with and change and adapt. And that's something that I think is really important, for people to succeed. And it's something that I'm glad that, my dad, when he was coaching me when I was a little kid, pushed on me, and, Kyle still does.
Coach Cole has gone to bat for you guys. I mean, he did a lot for this process for you, for Kyle as well. I mean, he'll put himself out there with some of the comments he makes.
Yeah, he takes heat for us.
Yeah. What have you appreciated about wrestling for him?
He's really, like you said, he's really willing to stick his neck out for his guys, you know what I mean? And the other thing, too, is he does a great job, with the behind-the-scenes work that, because there's a lot of people who are phenomenal coaches, wrestling coaches in the room doing technique. But Coach Cole also does a great job. We don't get any budget. We start with $0. So Coach Cole we get donations. He keeps in touch with alumni. He helps our guys, get jobs when they're done wrestling. And, he filed an arbitration hearing for my match. I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. And, when he told me after finalizing, I didn't know what it meant. He stuck his neck out for Kyle, helping him get back to wrestling and really what he does is he's willing to take heat and, maybe put himself in a position that's less than ideal for us, which, I think not a lot of people are willing to do that, and I really appreciate that, where he's willing to, maybe put himself out there a little bit for us.
Hey, great stuff, Yianni. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.